Hi, everybody. Welcome to a live edition of Inside the Texans. We do this each and every Monday morning at 11 a.m. right here on KPRC2+. Click to Houston.com and all the platforms, including YouTube as well. I'm Randy McAvoy. Great to have you with us as we put a bow on the game yesterday in Minneapolis against the Vikings. In studio here, we're going to chop it up for about a half hour. Adam Wexler from Sports Talk 790 and the A-Team. Good to see you, Wex. And Cody Stoots from www.houstonfootball.com. You got, a couple of Texans shows on YouTube.
YouTube, yeah.
You're very active. You're locked in with this team as well, and great insight. So make sure you follow both these guys on 790 and all the Texans coverage on his website, houstonfootball.com, and YouTube. Guys, we're coming out of this. I said last night on Sports Sunday, you know, when you look at the course of an NFL season, hopefully you've got maybe one, maybe two, no more than that, just trash games that you just didn't play well. You get it out of your system. It's hard to play solid, high level every single week, but is this one of those games you just got to learn from, clean up, and move forward?
Being awfully nice, a few more hours after kickoff and the final whistle, and maybe we should start over. Maybe that was a little bit of a false start for you, and you want to be a little meaner. I mean, I can't even help these ridiculous dad jokes. My goodness. They brought that on themselves. Granted, Minnesota is going to show that they're a very, very good team, but there are a lot of things that, you're right, they need to fix because a lot of that was on them.
There's too many mistakes that, when you talk about self-inflicted wounds, they surgically removed their legs. So there's no shoot yourself in the foot. They got rid of their own leg in this one with some of the mistakes that they made. The defense had a moment here or there, but ultimately they don't have enough. And then the offense, we've seen it for 3 weeks. They can't get the ball in the air consistently. Disjointed passing the football, that's not what this was supposed to be.
We're going to dive a lot into that and what's working, what's not working right now with this Texans offense 3 games in. Let's pop up the scoreboard. If you didn't catch it all yesterday, there's the final and some of the stats there from C.J. Stroud. And how about the penalties, too, guys? That's a problem now. It's a trending problem in these first few weeks. 11 more yesterday.
Yeah, it's a trending problem if 11 penalties is fewer than you had a week ago. There are 23 penalties in the last 2 games. It was among the first things that DeMeco Ryans said after the game. And it's not even the number that's so alarming. It's they're all in the same place. It's right in front of CJ. It's right where he bends over behind Juice Scruggs. And then it's the people right next to Juice every game. And everyone's going to pile on Laremy Tunsil. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pile on Laremy Tunsil.
Why not?
These are fixable. These are correctable. He is an elite pass blocker. That is what he is. He's not an elite run blocker, and he's a disastrous fixer of his own issues. Every year he's been a Texan. It's been the same problem. It's no different through 3 games this year. And if you think 5 yards doesn't matter because he's so good at protecting CJ, then you're missing the point on why they had so many drives stall. CJ said the other part of it. 3rd and long is no way to be successful. That was all game long.
I know it said 88 yards there on the penalties, but it was actually like 120-something yards because they wiped away big plays with penalties. And then Laremy Tunsil after the game, he's telling you guys as Aaron Wilson, like, oh, the NFL's targeting us for how we line up. It's like,
because they saw previous weeks, right?
Yeah, the first time I would say, okay, I'll give you 1, but it shouldn't happen again. I mean, wiping away 17 yards, 14 yards on 2 different plays on that one. And then, like, okay, the penalties, you got all the bad penalties. That's bad. They were just bad in general. Andrew Van Ginkel should not be working you out there, okay? Shaq Mason, it looks like he's chasing a balloon sometimes. Guys just run past him. Like, what's going on with this offensive line? And these are the dudes they wanted. 18 months they've been planning this offensive line. That's how it looks. That's not good enough.
I mean, the results we're seeing is not what we were all expecting, a little bit better. One thing, and I don't have word for word, so I'm not going to quote him right now, but Laremy talked briefly after the game, and to me, at least, I thought he, instead of just owning up, hey, I need to do this. I need to do this to correct it. He said, he added something along the lines of, but it's other people too. I just thought that was weak to be calling out other people. Just own it up. Say, hey, man, I'm going to take care of what I need to take care of.
The coach goes to the podium after the game, asked about pre-snap penalties. And DeMeco Ryans says, you got to take accountability for when you mess up.
Yep.
And then when Laremy Tunsil's talking about it, it's like, I'll take credit because they called my name, but it's not just me. It's like, buddy, you're the captain. You're one of the most expensive players in the NFL. Fix it. If it's not just you, make the other 4 guys right. Make them. They follow you. Those 4 guys on the offensive line follow Laremy Tunsil. If they're not doing right, he's got to be in charge of making them right.
He couldn't be more right, considering there were 4 consecutive false start penalties, and some of the other guys were a part of that. So
like a circus out there.
Following the leader. Now, one element of what you said, and we had talked about this prior, I do think he's actually correct that they are targeting him specifically, a few of the left tackles in the NFL, but him specifically because of all the false start penalties on him, because of the illegal formations, and then on top of that, they did happen to get a very bad crew for this. If you guys remember, the opening game was right here on KPRC, Thursday Night Football, Ravens-Chiefs.
Same crew.
5 illegal formations called on the Ravens line. There were 3 illegal formations called against the Texans. There's 23 teams in the league that haven't even had 2 called all season. This crew's called 9 of them over the course of the year. I don't know why they didn't tell the other crews, but this crew is specifically watching for that. And now to his other point, it's still on the Texans. You have to know this, and you have to react to it. They called it once, fine, fix it. If you don't think you fixed it, talk to them to get it fixed. That appeared to be an issue too, communication between them and the officials over the course of the game. Same thing like when receivers are pointing and am I good? You got to figure out a better way to not have that hit you more than once. It hit him 3 times.
And you go back and look, it's not like this is close. It's not like they're being petty about this with Laremy Tunsil. They played in Minneapolis. He's lined up in St. Paul. Like, what are you doing, Laremy? You got to fix it.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. And hey, we'll see. They got to clean it up quickly and get locked in and hopefully make some progress against the Jacksonville Jags coming up this weekend. We got some video, some pictures of Sam Darnold. Hot topic. It's like, who is this Sam Darnold guy we're seeing in these first few weeks? Looking like an all-pro. I mean, he threw for 188 yards, something along those lines, but he was on the money, found his guys.
Guys were open. Justin Jefferson the first among them, and I do think the broadcast indicated something that was clearly there throughout the game. There wasn't a lot of activity at the point of attack. There were a lot of cushion, a lot of opportunity to run free, to set up what they wanted. They utilized him well. When you have a receiver that is so difficult to stay with, you really have to spend your week figuring out what do we want to do against him. And I don't know that the Texans ever came up with a concrete plan, because it looked like they were doing a couple of different things, and throughout the game, it never seemed to click. Weird on a day where they actually did get into the backfield and Darnold did show some escapability. It's not to run for 50 yards, it's to buy more time, and it worked nearly every time, even though they did get to him.
It's disappointing when Darnold has that type of day. It's one of the best games he's ever played in his life statistically. And, oh, by the way, some of the issues that the Texans had were on film a week ago when the San Francisco 49ers, who run the same style of defense, lost to this Minnesota Vikings team. So it's like, did you not see what happened last week? These big, cushy, open spaces between your cornerback and Justin Jefferson. And I don't know how many times, felt like it's 3-4 times. Like, they needed 9 yards. He ran 10, turned around, ball's there. It's like, shouldn't Derek Stingley be there? Like, shouldn't Kamari Lassiter be there as well?
No doubt. I mean, he had plenty of time. How about the running game, too? I mean, the Texans had done a decent job, I think, on run defense. Jones averaged over 5 yards a carry yesterday.
His big carry kind of ballooned out. I didn't think their run defense was hurting them, but the more the game went on, when you know they're probably going to run, when they want to just kind of, well, we got a huge lead, let's bleed some clock here, that's when they couldn't stop them. That was a little bit more disappointing in that they couldn't do it. I think that, they're just biding their time a little bit, both in pass rush and in run defense. They're halfway there. They need DeMeco Ryans back badly. They're barely playing. They're playing Derek Barnett and the 2 starters. Jerry Hughes played 6 plays yesterday. These guys are getting worn down, and you're seeing it later in games. I definitely think you saw it in this game with their run defense. I got to say, surprisingly, their interior line, for both run and pass, I think they've actually played pretty well. And I was really shocked that they decided to flip their entire defensive tackle from last year to this year. But I can't say that that's a reason they're losing.
No, I liked what the defensive tackles have brought to the table. There's a couple of guys that they wanted to do exactly what they asked the defensive tackles to do, and they've had some success. Edwards has had a couple of sacks. Tim Settle got going yesterday.
Yeah,
we hadn't seen him yet. He got going yesterday. Khalil Davis was near that fumble that turned into a forward play for the Vikings. Like, they've had some success interior, but those edge guys, man. And Will Anderson's behind too. He missed so much time in training camp, so he's still getting the wind back to where it needs to be. Man, they just. it just snowballed. And like, where was the resiliency you saw for the first 2 weeks?
Right.
It wasn't there.
They laid an egg big time in Minnesota. Hey, let's roll out some of the stats, some numbers, guys. Tell me what jumps out. Here are the final numbers, total yards. You just kind of work your way down the list. You see the sack total there for Minnesota, and we got to mention Jonathan Grenard, the day he had against his former teammate. Think there's a little chirping going on out there on the field?
He earned every bit of it. He earned every bit of his contract, too. I don't think the Texans did something wrong by not bringing him back for obviously what they replaced him with, but he earned that money. He had one super healthy year. It was last year. It was in a great defense for him. He played that way, and now he's doing it there in Minnesota. Minnesota had a good defense and a good DC last year. And then they added 3 players. You mentioned one of them, Van Ginkel, the other Texan, Blake Cashman, and Grenard. And now this is one of the best 5 defenses in the NFL. And you saw it from the jump. That first play where Grenard said, hey, Cade Stover, I'm going to pretend like you're not even here, and ran him over. It resulted in Stover barely playing the rest of the game. He only had 19 snaps all day. That was a phenomenal performance against, hey, remember me? I used to play for you guys. That was awesome by Grenard.
I don't know how many teams are blocking the opposing team's best defensive end with tight ends, but the Texans did it too many times yesterday. That sack number it doesn't quite tell the whole story because CJ can avoid some of those things. They had a 3-man rush yesterday that turned into CJ having to scramble. That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. That cannot happen.
How much when y'all watching the game, and I don't have the eye to notice if it's all on CJ or if it's the O-line, the pass pro. I think it was a combination, probably a little bit of everything. What do y'all think?
I think CJ is such a playmaker, which most great quarterbacks are. They probably are on the back half of the league in terms of hold on to the ball. How long do they have? They don't really have as much time as they earn, but he's trying to make a play so often. It does end up getting him hit a little bit more often. Some of those result in sacks, but you also have to realize the biggest difference offensively from a mental standpoint, first 2 weeks to this week, they played nearly the entire game from behind. The whole game, the Vikings are able to do what they want, and not just behind by 1 score, behind by 2, then behind by 3 touchdowns. That changes what you're able to do. That turnover number is pretty much everything for the Vikings. 3 years under Coach O'Connell, when they've been even or ahead in the turnovers, they're undefeated. They're 20-0.
Yep.
It's just they've got to be able to be a multifaceted offense. And we didn't even really see if they could run the football yesterday. It didn't look great when they tried a couple of times, but we didn't see if they could run the football yesterday with no Joe Mixon, no Dameon Pierce, because they got behind so fast, then you turn into a one-dimensional team, and then you're in a lot of trouble.
All right, so those are the numbers. You got to work on it. One thing on Stroud, too. How many sacks, how many times has Stroud been sacked now through 3 games? Because the pace, if you're looking big picture long season, I know that's going to probably.
They're in the top 5.
I don't mean to be the on-pace guy, but you got to look at the numbers.
They're in the top 5 for sacks allowed. Now, one of them was Davis Mills this week.
Right.
He's been hit and sacked way more than they would have ever expected, probably against these opponents. Chicago's probably going to turn out to be a pretty good defense. I already said Minnesota's great, but the number's way out of control.
Any concerns? You think that'll kind of even out?
I mean, here's the scary part. He's probably avoided another couple and probably gotten rid of the football and taken another hit as well. So, like, the sack numbers tell you a story, but you mentioned it. QB hits, pressures, stuff like that. It's too much. It's too much.
It's a concern. It's not going away until they show us it's going away.
Consistency is what it's all about. Hey, let's listen in now. We got a little bit of DeMeco Ryans postgame from Minneapolis. Check it out.
They beat us up and down the field physically. They were a really good team, and they made a lot of plays today. So credit to those guys, really well-coached team, respect those guys, and they did a great job today. For us, we didn't do anything to help ourselves. Way too many penalties again. That starts with me. It's too many penalties, back-to-back game, over 10 penalties. It's unacceptable. You can't win that way when we have something positive going. We negate it by the penalty. So that just zaps the energy out of everyone. And so then turning the ball over, there's a lot of miscues today. And you can't do that and expect to win in this league. So we have to, we take the loss and we got to move on. Yeah, it was just a lot of negative plays. I don't think we couldn't get the run game going like we wanted to. So a lot of negative plays there. And you have that many negative plays, it's hard to do anything positive when you continue to hurt yourself. So we have to go back to the drawing board, figure it out, and not let one become 2. The pre-snap penalties, it all is self-inflicted, so we have to take ownership of it. Right, first and foremost, have to take ownership of it, and we all have to man up and be man enough to just do what we're supposed to do and be where we're supposed to be and play smart, clean football. The main thing is everybody just has to be, accountable for their role, their job, right? It takes everybody. It's not just about one person. It takes everybody working together. And again, we'll go back and look at the mistakes that were made, on the film and see, how the Texans can help the Texans. Right now, today the Texans help the Vikings a lot, and the Vikings played really good, so that's indicative of the final score. Yeah, you can't harp on it. You can't harp on it, man. We'll watch it tomorrow. You learn from the mistakes. It's all about what do you learn, from this loss. What do you learn? And if you learn and you make the proper corrections for the next week, we should play better next week.
All right, that was DeMeco Ryans. Couple of minutes of his post-game press conference yesterday, and spoken like a true coach. Said, admittedly, we got things to clean up here, and we got to do it quickly. We can't let up. We got the Jags coming to town.
This is where you find out about DeMeco Ryans and his coaching staff. How many of these things are going to persist after a really, really nasty one like yesterday? You should get it cleaned up in short order if you're really good at your job.
How they kind of reacted to this a year ago, a little bit different situation. I kind of felt like one of these games was the Jets game. But they couldn't react wholly because CJ was out for the next couple of weeks. But how they played that week was clearly they reacted well to it. They won a game with Case Keenum. This being early in the season, and I also know CJ is cognizant of that since he mentioned that. I do think these are the correctable mistakes. We've already brought it up. There's no question about that. I don't want to. It sounds like we're taking almost too much attention or credit away from Minnesota, who I think is a very, very, very good team and exceptionally well coached offensively with Coach O'Connell, and I think Brian Flores is a pretty good defense.
I think he's pretty good, yeah.
So there's elements of both. That's why the score is so lopsided.
Let's get back to C.J. Stroud. We got sound coming up, but to roll some video here. Just more on C.J. and just, the pressure he saw yesterday, the struggles against this defense. And, he's a guy you figure he's going to look at the film and figure it out. And, he had a lot coming at him yesterday. 18
regular season games now for CJ. Now twice he's thrown more than one interception in a game. Did it against Arizona last year in a win, and now he did it again yesterday. The second of those two interceptions, that was just bad play on his part, which he almost immediately took accountability for it, for where he put the ball. So far behind Nico, he could have slid and tried to get back to it and couldn't. First one was tipped, but there was a pattern of tipped balls, and I think that's something else that part of his game may be the only place where there's some improvement to be made. The feel for a soft screen, the feel for getting it over that on-rushing defender. Some of these plays call for you to leave a guy unblocked, to take him out of the play. Well, then it's up to the quarterback to make sure he's out of the play by throwing it over the top, and it didn't happen as often as it should have. I still think he put a lot of balls where they needed to be. I thought that Dalton Schultz throw down the seam was just about as good as you could hope for the pressure he was under. Nico a couple of times, as he usually does. Dell was, turning around and the ball was right in his chest. He, in the midst of all this pressure, he still is throwing the ball more often than not where it's supposed to be. Just they were in such bad down and distance all day. And on the gotta have it, you're down 21-0. You got to go get that score. He takes on some incredible pressure off the right side and still gets the ball out on a couple back-to-back plays. They end up scoring on that one. It's a really good job by him. There's a couple yards left out there because of penalties. A couple yards left out there on a play that he makes when he doesn't have pressure, but because he did have pressure, maybe it's a little bit off. So a pretty solid day from him. And you're sunk if you have a lesser quarterback. You're not even close. It was close. Okay, 2 scores. Okay, still 2 scores.
He gives you a shot.
Yeah, he gives you a shot.
You probably just consider the very first play. Throws a 17-yard completion to Nico Collins. You're moving down the field. You're almost
good about the day,
but it's called back by penalty. Stover tackled the defender. He couldn't stop from getting to CJ.
All right, at the podium, here's a little bit of CJ Stroud on Sunday.
They kind of did exactly what we thought. Played a lot of too high, a lot of taking away our passing game, and then they would either blitz the edge and try to stop the run on a certain down. They did a lot of things that we thought we were doing. We just, weren't moving quick enough. We weren't executing. We weren't playing hard enough. It starts with me. So just got to be better. It's, something that I feel like it can be fixed. So it's nothing to hang our heads down about, but, definitely can and will be better. You keep shooting yourselves in the foot and just moving backwards. You're not playing complimentary football even for yourself. So, I don't know exactly. I can't just tell you right now exactly what the issues are up there. It has to be conversation, away from, the game and just meetings and just seeing what we can do to be better when it's loud, and how intentional we have to be at practice and things like that, just to get those things fixed. 'Cause, I mean, we're moving the ball. It's just you're kicking yourself out the red zone and kicking opportunities, and and it's hard to live on third and plus 10. So realize, I mean, we're still very, very talented. We're still a force to be reckoned with, and we're still very dangerous. It's nothing to, I mean, I always use this quote by Nipsey Hussle: just never let a hard time humble you. I mean, like all the way to zero. You learn and you have some humility, but you don't let it take you back to square one or square zero. And we built a foundation solid on rock. So we're not going to act like everything was perfect out there, but we're not going to act like there wasn't some positives. And once we fix the negatives, I mean, we're going to be rolling. So I'm excited, man, because the only way we can go up the only way we can go now is up. So I'm very grateful and blessed that we did get our tails whooped today, and it's something to learn from. And I'm glad it happened early. Now it's time to go to work.
All right, C.J. Stroud, a little bit of his chat with the media there in Minneapolis yesterday. I don't see any panic in him. He feels like this is correctable stuff here.
I mean, we've gone through it. I do think a lot. The false starts and illegal formations, those are clearly correctable. Communication, understanding how to play a little bit better in the road conditions. CJ is actually a very, very different quarterback, home and road. When you get a chance to look at those numbers, there is a huge spread on the difference. Yeah, running the offense with an offensive line performance like that becomes very difficult.
Real quick, we want to hear from the viewers out there. How would you grade the performance of the offensive line? Your chance to weigh in. You see the question and the options. Just head on over to click2vote.com to weigh in.
I'm glad Laremy voted.
That's 1% there. I think a very familiar voice to Houston sports fans would say, I give the Texans offensive line an F. It was a terrible performance. Pathetic.
F-.
Hey,
we got a graphic, if we can pop it up, guys. Just the numbers from the big three receiving the trio yesterday. Diggs had the big day. You see Dell. I thought Dell, last week I said, all right, my prediction was Dell's going to have the breakout day. Yeah, he's all right, but it didn't happen. And Nico, 4 for 88. Gilmore did a good job covering Nico Collins. That was a factor, and obviously you see Diggs got the bigger numbers and more targets as well.
Well, Tank had some yards taken away because of one of Laramie's penalties, so that goes away.
Yep.
I mean, I just wonder if there's more that they could do with Tank Dell. Just a little bit more, just easier stuff over the middle, stuff like that. I think Diggs gets a lot of that over the middle stuff that maybe Tank was getting last year. But I just wonder if there's still something schematically with Tank Dell that they could do a little bit more.
Couldn't agree more. Most of his plays yesterday they're not in space. Last year, so much of his work was done in space, and having an additional player in the mix has changed that a little bit. Diggs was the chain mover, essentially, and I think that's probably what it's going to be here. And Collins, with a little help from Davis Mills late in the game, still the big play guy. He's still number one in the NFL and will be through 3 weeks in terms of receiving yards. I don't think that part of it's ever going to change. And Gilmore did do a good job, and other number one DBs will do a good job. And he'll still do what he does. He's that good.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here on Inside the Texans. When we come back, more on the loss, but looking ahead as well to the date with Jacksonville Jaguars coming up Sunday at NRG Stadium. Inside the Texans, coming right back.
We got beat, man. You just need to go back to the drawing board and correct all the mistakes. Credit today, they were the better football team. Yeah, there's definitely some missed tackles, some guys that were in different positions that they needed to be. But we just got to go back to the drawing board and fix all those.
Really just feel like we can't beat ourselves. Can't just have penalties just compound on each other like that and get you behind the sticks. I felt like our offense was flowing, and then we just put ourselves back in the hole. That's honestly kind of how I felt like, from my viewpoint, it was going.
Very emotional. Try not to ride the roller coaster. Take it with a grain of salt, obviously. It's kind of weird to be happy for the guys that you see. Obviously, you want them to be successful and then be on the other side of it. So Obviously, I'm not happy, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like a little weird spot. I'm happy for those guys, happy to see those familiar faces, but we didn't play well enough today, and I was a key part in that. You know what I'm saying? I need to play better. So it's a little bit of a roller coaster, but you know what I'm saying? Smiles for the guys that I do see and I support from afar. Continue to support them. You know, I'm trying inside I want to win. So division games, they damn near count as two when you play. So looking to get on the right track. Obviously, we're playing a good team, and you know, I'm just eager to get back to work for.
All right, some reaction from the Texans inside the locker room, all saying it basically in their words, you know, we got to look in the mirror, we got to get this corrected, and we will. They're pretty confident I think they're going to be able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice enough. I mean, far be it for me to say Jacksonville's not a very good team, but I don't think Jacksonville's a very good team.
No,
so
I agree.
Coming into town, chance to go 2-0 in the division, a good bounce back week for all that. A team there, you know, you have to agree they're much more familiar with. They haven't made enough coaching changes over the last 2 years while DeMeco's crew has been here. They should have some familiarity with that, but it does all stem from or start from where Daniil was talking. It's internal. Just fix these things and give yourself a chance to start moving in the right direction.
No better time to refocus than coming back home.
Yep.
Divisional opponent that was nipping at your heels all year long for the division title. Refocus, dial it back in.
All right, our Aaron Wilson was with the team there in Minneapolis. He has 3 takeaways from the loss yesterday against the Vikings.
Hi, this is Aaron Wilson from KPRC2 Sports from US Bank Stadium, where the Texans lost their first game of the season. The biggest reason why the Texans lost isn't just the penalties, which are a problem, but fixable. Players rarely acknowledge that they have to have better discipline. They got to have some better communication with the officials too. And Laremy, Tunsil, and Titus Howard both accountable about the penalties, as was Juice Scruggs. That said, this game went beyond that. There were pass coverage breakdowns against Justin Jefferson, one of the best wide receivers in the game. Sam Darnold was allowed to be too comfortable in the pocket, and they didn't do a good enough job of protecting C.J. Stroud against the unpredictable, aggressive defense that the architect, Brian Flores, really thrived against the Texans with his cover 0, with getting Jonathan Grenard in some favorable matchups, including against rookie tight end Cade Stover. He had 3 sacks after signing a 4-year, $72 million deal during the offseason. Texans are 2-1, and they can bounce back from this loss, but they have to learn from it. And talking to guys like Stephon Diggs, C.J. Stroud, and many others, that was the emphasis, that this is just the beginning, that they have a good foundation, and they're confident that they can fix these mistakes and get back to work, bounce back against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they have an opportunity to be 3-1 after next Sunday and 2-0 in the AFC South Division. To do that, they're going to have to improve a lot. It's an improvement league, and the Texans, they got nowhere to go but up after today. This was a rough showing for the Texans with the penalty issue, which is a problem all season. They're up to 28 penalties for the year. They are the leading penalty team in the NFL. Penalty machines, they've got to fix that. They got to get on the same page with the officials, and that, as DeMeco Ryans said, is unacceptable. Reporting for KPRC2 Sports, I'm Aaron Wilson.
All right, Aaron Wilson in Minneapolis checking in after that ball game yesterday. We've got another megaphone question for you. All right, guys, if Joe Mixon is out again, we don't know what the status is. We'll find out midweek. If they don't have Mixon against the Jags, how confident should we be in this running game?
Yeah, that's probably a pretty good answer. I'm not super confident in it. I don't think Akers got much of a chance. There's only 9 carries. Again, the scoreboard kind of dictated that. Yep. I do think he's capable of it, but it falls on those guys in front of him. We didn't mention Brevin Jordan the entire show, and that is a factor. Not having Brevin Jordan as a part of this unit and what they want to do. They don't even employ a fullback, and they certainly haven't lined anybody up at fullback very often. All those things impact it no matter who's back there, Joe or not.
I'll go like 3.5, 4. Not great.
On a scale of 10.
On a scale of 10, don't feel great, not great. Right about where the audience
not high.
is.
So hopefully, if that's the case, we'll find out midweek on his status. Hopefully, CJ can sling it around. Real quick, Jags and the Texans, if you go out and go support them there at NRG Stadium, it is a 12 o'clock kickoff. Back in the division once again. And closing thoughts real quick, got about 30 seconds. Seems like most of the time when these two teams play, we have pretty good ball games.
CJ back at home, take care of business against the Jags.
Yeah, get back on track against Jacksonville. That's been their history.
All right, good stuff. Adam Wexler, Sports Talk 790 and the A-Team. Cody Stoots, HoustonFootball.com, and all things Texans on YouTube. Thanks for watching Inside the Texans. We'll do it again next Monday.